Hello and welcome to another how-to for Hearts of Iron 4. This time a big shout out to Trevor, who commissioned this one on the Patreon. They asked us to take Canada, turn fascist, join the Axis, and reclaim the Canadian lands held by Britain and France. Eyeing it up, there are three main territories that we're going to have to return to ourselves and fight the Allies in the process. Of course, we cannot disregard the sleeping giant of the United States to our south. They are someone we're going to have to take care of, preferably while they are still sleeping. Now, our army isn't all that hot, although the game does give us a few fairly good generals right off the bat. We'll be making good work of those. Checking out our division designs as well, we have a fairly good infantry set here. Lots of manpower to sponge up the damage, and even a tank thrown in for a good measure. That armour will help us out, and that's something we'll concentrate on. Fairly standard cavalry design as well. So our laws are fairly standard, nothing out of the ordinary here. Volunteer forces, civilian economy, and the such. We get 3 research slots, thankfully. A lot of the world is only given 2 of them. Straight away we're going to focus on Light Tank 2. It's going to give us extra armour that's going to play a huge part in our strategy here, and as part of the build up we might as well aid our electronics and our constructions. All should work out fairly well for us. In addition to that, we have a fair few civilian factories, not too many, but we're going to focus them all on building up our military might. Focusing on building military factories, although mostly in the east, since this will be a lot more defendable for us. More on that later. It's worth pointing out that we have to go fascist for this run. It's part of the stipulation, so we want to beeline towards that. We're taking political focus so that we can get the power to employ a demagogue. Additionally, we're going to spend our starting military factories focusing fairly heavily on making weapons 1 and light tank. We want to be able to flesh out all of our units with those as best we can before wartime, and we may as well set everything else to making convoys, since a large navy is neither attainable nor particularly advantageous for us here in the early game. Now, we're eyeing up the United States as a potential enemy, so we have lined up our troops against their border, but exclusively over in the east. We've got our 150 political power that we need, so we're getting our demagogue. We would rather not split ourselves into a civil war right from the get-go, so we'll let that build up before we make the switch. Now, eyeing up the United States over here, what we're doing is putting our cavalry behind the rivers. They'll serve as defensive units for us, whilst we have our infantry that are not going to have to cross the river, stationed as such. Now, we're going to need a lot more units before we can do anything to the United States. Weak as they are at the start of the game, we're still going to need to pack a punch. That is why we are producing as much as we can, as fast as we can, and building up those military factories to aid all of that, not focusing at all in building up the civilian infrastructure that we need. Now, we're not able to go down any more of the political focus until we can finish off turning to fascist. So we're working on industrial things now. With Light Tank 2 finally developed, if we recheck our division design for the infantry, having Light Tank 2 instead of 1 gives us extra bit of armor there that we can be fairly confident the enemy will not be able to pierce without using anti-tank. I doubt they'd be able to react fast enough to us rushing in with armored tanks, so we're going to focus very heavily on the production of those Light Tank 2s, to the point where we will trade away our very limited number of civilian industry just to get in the resources that we need, so that both the production and the production efficiency growth can climb up as fast as we need it. Also grabbing an advisor to speed up the growth of our army experience as well as doctrine research, just because I like getting those in early. We'll continue to build up, working on our focuses in technology that allow us to produce more and build faster, whilst we might as well work on our doctrines too. Now, when we're given the option that we could have civil war to turn fascist, I am making sure that we do not take the civil war route. We do not have the units nor the equipment to survive a civil war and come out fighting strength high enough to take on the United States. We're finally making our way through the starting deficit of equipment, so we're queuing up more of our infantry units, bearing in mind those ones are mixed in with the tank to give them the armor. Additionally, construction is going just fine and dandy, and we are assigning those military factories to yet more production of Weapons 1 and Light Tank 2. Eventually the coup d'etat will succeed without the need for civil war, and we can flip ourselves over to Fascist. We are now Unitary Canada, so we have fulfilled one of the goals that was set to us. We've also upgraded some of our laws accordingly. We want a bit more mobilization in our country so we don't have to throw away so many of our factories. And now the political tree is open to us, thanks to not being democratic anymore. We're going to work our way down that because we really want that extra recruitable manpower, or else we're never going to be able to field more units. Shift ourselves into war economy so that we can both build faster and have more factories available to us. Now, we're going to need some time before we can take on the United States, but any moment that we take to get ourselves stronger is also moments that they are using to get stronger themselves. We also have to keep in mind that if we don't strike them early, they're going to join the Allies, and that is not going to make life particularly easy for us. We'll deploy units as soon as we can, get them trained, and have them guard important areas where we're connected to the United States. I'm dividing up my units as such, as there are important choke points that I want to hold, and to be able to strike from. Now keep in mind there is a single light tank too mixed in with these infantry, and that means that when they are involved in a battle, they are not going to take as much org or manpower damage, and that's going to be pretty important both for them holding the lines here and for them going on an offense. An important part of my strategy here is that I am singling off 3 of my infantry tank divisions in this lovely choke point in the country, which is only 3 provinces wide and behind a river and in forests, so that should the United States push that far, they will push no further. I am essentially signing off central and western Canada as an unnecessary wasteland. There are a fair few factories there, but in order to garrison that area substantially with troops, it would take far too much out of our military might for us to want to bother with that. Now that we are fascist, we are kicking ourselves out of the Allies, since we need to do that in order to be able to justify a war goal on the United States. Whilst you play so much of our different grand strategies, it's very easy for me to forget that you need Casus Belli in Hearts of Iron in order to declare war. I am adamant that no CB is the best CB. So with militarism done in our political focus tree, we have unlocked a lot more manpower with which we can flesh out the units that we are creating, always trying to stay on top of the production of our units so that even if there is a lack of them, they will go into the units we have in training as quickly as possible. Also trying to make sure that none of our units are fresh, so they don't get the minus 25% in battle modifier. So we have our defences set up. The 3 province-wide choke point I talked about before, some of our smaller borders with the USA, and the larger eastern border that we share. Again, we're having cavalry defending behind the rivers, and our infantry in a position where they can attack without having to cross a river. There's no need to hold back, we simply declare war, and now the United States are going down. It's early enough that they are not part of the Allies, nor is world tension so high that we need to worry about them joining anytime soon, so it's really just the United States and the Philippines. The Philippines aren't somewhere we're going to have to worry about. So there we have it, the armoured bonus helping all of our units in these battles. It would be a miracle for the United States to be able to destroy any of our infantry divisions, since they have so many troops in them, and they have that armoured bonus. We have our cavalry, who are simply defending those river points. Now the cavalry on their own are not very strong, but defending there that they are, as well as having the river crossing bonus, should keep them there steady. We've been working on the defence and planning doctrine, so their entrenchment is fairly good, even though they don't have much in the way of engineer companies. In fact, I don't think any of our units at all have those. We're just defending on the areas that we're not attacking from. Really, the offence point is all over in the east. Now the east is favourable as an offensive point, not least because we can just surrender the west and have the USA blow a lot of their troops there. But the USA also has a lot of their victory points over in the east. We want to force them to capitulation as soon as possible, and that is made easier by securing said victory points. The USA has 60 or 70% national unity, so you still have to slice quite a lot through them, but it'll be a lot easier attacking from the east. For us, we simply charge our way through the malnourished United States troops. We're early enough in the game that they can't really offer that much back at us, although as they follow their own focuses, they will be overcoming the weaknesses the USA starts out with very low recruitable population, very high civilian use of factories and as such. But Canada is too strong for them. We are focusing them to choke on our Canadian bacon, and we can just plow on through, surrounding units wherever we can, because our ability to break through is oh so much higher than theirs to defend is. Now before we know it, we are going to be the dominant power over in the east, and that secures us quite a lot of their delicious resources. Initially, lots of steel, to the point that we can actually stop trading for it, freeing up our factories. Now, we could be repairing things that we're taking over, but I am commissioning forts on the choke point, because even though I'm confident that the United States will not get past that 3 province-wide choke point in the centre of our country, I want to make absolutely sure an extra fortification will give us 15% more defence, and that's what we're looking for. In the meantime though, we just slaughter the Freedom Army. Our Mounties will have no problem dealing with them. Now all the while the Americans are losing men and equipment, we are building them up fast enough, not only to replace our losses, but to prepare ourselves for yet more units to throw into the meat grinder. We have extra offensive points that we want to open up, all the while the Americans just burn in our west. So opening up those extra fronts, when we have the units available, we assign them to them and get our plan underway. The goal is to join up these offensive fronts whilst maintaining the defence we have in the centre of our country. We can surrender so much of our country, our national unity does allow for it, and I'm confident they will not get through. So with the Americans wasting resources there, we can plough on through our own offensive points. The more we take of the Americas, the less they can offer back. Of course, the land we take is all just going to be destroyed to partisan activities, but that's alright. We get the resources, and we have plenty of our factories built up in the east of our country. Remember early on, we built those military factories in the east for good reason, knowing that we would be losing the centre and the west. Now our offensive operations are joining up, and we continue to push as fast as we can through the United States. World tension is rising, and we don't want it to get so high that the United States can end up joining in the Allies, since that will drag out this war immeasurably longer. Unitary Canada continues to press forward. We may as well take the harshest rule against these Americans so that we can take all their factories, force them to make more tanks and guns for us. That's all we're really reinforcing with. More infantry equipment and more light tank 2s. That's enough to get us the armoured bonus. We haven't been producing additional cavalry. It's all about those infantry and tank divisions. We've managed to reach infantry equipment 2. But that isn't really going to turn the tide here. America has already been thoroughly beaten. Just checking through the research that we have done thus far. Continue to plough our way down through the Grand Battle Plan Doctrine. Also making sure that we're able to build stuff as fast as we can. A large focus has been going for industrial capacity, even going ahead of time for it. Otherwise though, we have our plans, we have our planning bonus, and we just fire through the Americas. It doesn't take too long to slice through Eastern and Central America. They still dedicate a little bit of forces to Western Canada, which does allow us to slice through them that bit easier, and we're coming very close to forcing their capitulation. Once they do, because they haven't been able to join in any other faction, bang, we get our peace deal, and we can dictate the terms as we see fit. First off, we're going to puppet their puppets, so we don't have to worry about going to war with them as well, and we may as well take everything for ourselves. It was just us fighting America. We're going to secure all of it now that it has completely been annexed by Unitary Canada. We don't have to worry about additional partisan activities. But we're not going to spend our newfound many civilian factories on repairing that stuff. Factories and such can repair themselves, it's just slow over time, so we may as well use our ones to build, forget all that repair stuff. Now that wasn't even what the goal of this was to be. We have to take that land back from the United Kingdom and from France. Those French and British provinces in Canada belong to us. So things are going alright for our friends over in the Axis. We have not joined them yet, but we will be getting on that. We have a lot of units that we need to position, so I'm just recruiting lots of units and throwing them onto the possible points of invasion, whilst setting up invasion for ourselves. Shouldn't be too hard. We go over to our good friend Uncle Adolf and we say, please let us in your cool club, and he's only too happy to agree. We are a big strong fascist power and he knows we'll be helping him out. Although we do want to strike before France capitulates, since then the lands would go to Germany, and that is not part of the agreement here. So joining in the war, we get our own naval invasions on the go. We don't have a particularly impressive navy of our own, but the British and the French are not focusing over here, so it shouldn't be too hard for us. Just sending in our units and mopping up the land that should belong to unitary Canada. Sending in our best Mounties to take it all over. Now we have joined in World War II proper, but, you know, if there's one thing we've inherited from the USA, it's a bit of a laissez-faire attitude. We're not about to go trundling over there right now. We will, however, continue our research and take back this land that belongs to us. I don't know what Trevor was getting at when he commissioned this. For all I know, he's a die-hard Canadian patriot, but this land always was and always shall be Canadian. We're just going to take it over, and then never again shall the Allies set foot in the New World. Perhaps not the best invasion of an island I've ever done there, but there was no resistance to worry about. And once that land is taken over by us, everything that we set out to do will be done. Now there's a whole load of war that's still going to be going on. The German Reich is still taking on the might of the Allies, but the Allies will not be seeing reinforcements from the USA. In the future, perhaps all they'll see is horrible invasions coming from Canada. Who's to say? France is just crumbling to the might of the German Reich. The Germans were able to invade through the lowlands, completely bypassing all the defences around Alsace-Lorraine. And as our units march in, it is operation complete. French and British lands now surrendered to unitary Canada, and the world is looking as it should. Now it'll be worth our time checking out exactly the makeup of our country after these few short years to see what we went through to get where we are. We have our 5 research slots now. Taking it from the top, we did do a beeline for just about everything that would help us offensively, although we made no use of the medium tanks, we still researched them. We needed a little bit of naval research, but that is all. And a lot of research put into everything that will get us constructing. Our focus is on construction as well. And our production tree looking great, although still mostly focused on tanks and infantry equipment, whilst we're still building up military factories. More factories is more power. So big thanks to Trevor for this commission. This has been Fascist Unitary Canada.